let's move on to another reason, which is going to be my last reason from physics, why causality might be an illusion. And that is the fact that in modern physics, imaginary time is often used as the dynamical variable instead of regular time. Now, to understand this, you need to understand a little bit about complex numbers. Ordinarily, you might say that -1 has no square root, but in order to make mathematics work out, the square root of -1 is defined as the imaginary number I. And you can multiply I by any real number and get 2i, 3i, 5i, etc. And sometimes, instead of thinking of time as varying from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sometimes in modern physics, they think of the physical system depending on imaginary time. So the physical system evolves as time goes from 0i, 2i, 3i, 4i, 5i. In quantum field theory, often a particular technique called Wick rotation is used. And this technique exactly does that. That it turns imaginary time into the dynamical variable, and then it does some hand waving to try to come back to real time. Now, even more striking, there's a proposal out for the beginning of the universe. It's called a Hawking-Hartle no boundary theorem. And what it says is that the universe actually has no beginning. The beginning of the universe is in imaginary time. And the universe develops as a function of imaginary time. Now, it's not always presented in this way, but if you go to the equations, you'll see that that's what's going on, that the universe evolves as a function of imaginary time, not real time. Okay. Now, unfortunately, it seems that the significance of this is not widely appreciated. That these uses of imaginary time are treated as mathematical convenience and don't really correspond to anything, quote, real. Now, as I said before, this is a dangerous way to approach mathematics. Time and again, the mathematical structure of equations has led to a new conception of the way physics is. That's what happened with relativity. That's what happened in other cases as well. Okay, now this last reason that I'll give that supports the idea that causality is an illusion may not resonate with some people, but for me it's very important in determining the direction of my own thinking. I believe that Jesus Christ is the Savior of the world. I believe that He died and rose again, and I believe the Bible is an accurate representation of the things that He said and did. And I want to point out that the Bible is fundamentally non-causal. Just one example. The Bible in two places talks about the lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Okay? So what this says is that the death of Jesus Christ was already determined before the beginning of the world, or when the beginning of the world occurred, the death of Jesus Christ was already determined. So the death of Jesus Christ on the cross is causally prior to the beginning of the world. So here we have something in the future which is causally prior to something in the past. We also have a number of prophecies about Jesus Christ, that He's born of a virgin, that He shall be called a Nazarene, that He will come out of Egypt, and so on. Now, it's possible that Jesus' life was arranged post hoc to agree with these prophecies, but I think it's more reasonable to assume that Jesus' life was causally prior to the prophecies about Him. That these prophecies were talking about things that were already causally determined. All right. Now, the usual explanation of this is that basically that God wrote the script at the beginning of the world, and then things played out according to the way God wrote the script. He saw beforehand what was going to happen and mapped it all out, and we're just playing out our parts. Right. Now, I find this very unsatisfying. I think a lot of other people do. I don't really see a big difference between this and the deistic idea that God is a watchmaker that sets the watch and gets it running. Okay, so I find this unsatisfactory. But notice that this idea is predicated on the idea that causes are always in the past. It's always the past that causes the future. If you throw out this assumption, then you don't get this picture at all. You get a picture of God that is active, of causes that are occurring as the universe goes along. And we don't get this idea of a passive God who's pulling puppet strings. Okay. And I would like to close with the observation that this unquestioned assumption of causality lies at the heart of the Calvinist-Arminian debate, the debate over free will. If you look carefully at the arguments, this causal assumption is just there. No one questions it. It's just considered to be true. And I think that if you throw out this causal assumption of causality, it may clear the air somewhat as to this debate. So you can think about that. And as I said, I'm going to come out with a second video that discusses what are the possible alternatives to causality. So thanks very much.